An old man sits on a park bench, thinking of a time shrouded in the past. His name is Frank Styles, and he was once one of the brilliant young scientists who worked on the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project, the secret experiment that ushered in the wonders and terrors of the atomic age. It was his work that helped secure America's position as the leader of the free world. But Frank's memories are tinged with bitterness. He was thrown off the project when he accused one of his fellow scientists of being a communist spy. And now he sits in this park, every day feeling a little older and a little more useless.
Just a minute. I recognize that man. It's O'Connor from the Manhattan Project. They never did believe me he was working for the Reds. But who's that suspicious fellow he's talking to? It looks like they're making some kind of secret exchange. I better move in closer for a better listen.
Have you got the documents?
Do you have my money?
By Lenin's ghost. Is that all you Americans think about? The almighty dollar?
Damn, I've been discovered.
Idiot! You've been followed.
Up to your old tricks, O'Connor?
Do you know this capitalist fool?
This is an itch I've been waiting to scratch for 20 years.
We must flee before we are discovered. Come on!
Bullet entered my heart, fading fast. Wait, statue of the Minuteman, glowing, as if it were calling out to me. Power surging into me. I am growing younger, body bursting with strength. Feel like I could lift 1,000 pounds. That statue must have been hit with some fantastic kind of energy, but it's fading. It must have completely transferred it into my body. I don't know what will come from all of this, but I must use these new powers to help my country fight her enemies within and without. Those Reds might have killed Frank Styles, but they're about to meet a Minuteman.
Donning a costume to protect his identity, Minuteman searches for the treacherous O'Connor.
Perhaps that double-crosser left some clues in this park to his whereabouts.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Looking Back, a retrospective series where I go back to games I grew up playing and see how well they hold up now as an adult. And today we are looking back at Freedom Force, a squad-based RTS game developed by Irrational Games and published by EA alongside Crave Entertainment. Released in 2002, Freedom Force has players control a group of superheroes in the fictional setting of Patriot City, which is heavily inspired by New York City. After an extraterrestrial energy source simply called Energy X lands on Earth, a group of individuals of all walks of life start obtaining superpowers such as super strength, the ability to fly, and even telepathy. Now before I continue this video, I would like to mention this video will be a tad different from the previous Looking Back episode. After hearing your guys' feedback, I will not be doing a full story recap during this video. I will focus more on theme, gameplay, and more or less the fun factor of the game. That way it'll save you guys from having to skip over a giant chunk of the video. So starting off, let's talk about how much this game is inspired by modern day comics, and you could even say movies. Almost every member of the Freedom Force is inspired by a mixture of actors and Marvel/DC superheroes. One example is Minuteman. The first character you play as in the game is literally a very enthusiastic copy of Captain America from the Marvel universe. Another good example is actually one of the optional characters that you can unlock in the first few hours, and that is Man-O-War.
And some new faces.
Halt! You shan't be walking away from here with that, lad. Who are you to?
This Fishman's powers are heavily inspired by Aquaman from the DC universe, but also has the voice and personality of Sean Connery, which is comically amazing, to be honest. Almost every character in the game is a reference to real-world comic book heroes or villains, and is a big part of the fun factor of this game, is meeting these characters and finding out for yourself who they are based on. When it comes to the story, this game falls a bit flat. Though it's fun having all these references between the characters of the game and the characters from the Marvel or DC universes, they kind of do the same thing with the story writing. From beginning to end, Freedom Force is the epitome of basic comic book story writing. Almost every story element in this game can be compared to or even directly ripped from existing comic book storylines from modern comics. Hell, even the final story arc of Freedom Force is pretty much Avengers Endgame without saying too much.
Mechanical.
Scoff if you will. I'm only helping you for my art.
While replaying Freedom Force, I found myself kind of ignoring and even skipping through the story just because, honestly, it's not that great. And the further you get into the game, the lazier the writing seems to get. I feel like when Irrational Games was writing the script for this game, they kind of got bored themselves and just wanted it to be done. At least that's the impression I am getting. Now it's time for me to trigger a lot of Freedom Force fans and talk gameplay. Trust me, when I played this as a kid when it came out, which I would have been about 7, I loved Freedom Force. I played it every day for a long while, although I never got far in it. I just loved the comic book style and the main character's over-enthusiasm that I didn't really care much about anything else. But when I replayed Freedom Force over the last few months, I found the game more frustrating than I found it fun. Freedom Force is an RTS that relies heavily on RNG, which for me is a fun killer. For those who don't know, RNG, or random number generation, is a mechanic in games where, based on the stats of the player, NPC, or other values, the game randomly takes those factors and hits the randomize button. Whatever number comes out of that is the amount of damage you deal or take, the amount of loot you get, or if your hit is a critical or not. Now in the case of Freedom Force, all combat is fully RNG dependent. There are things you can do to increase your chances at better numbers, but for the most part, whether you do well in Freedom Force or not is completely in the hands of the game itself. And for me, the RNG factor is what killed my enjoyment for this game completely. I started playing the game on normal difficulty. After beating the tutorial and moving on to mission 2, I immediately started running into problems. I would be controlling Minuteman, and the first thug with a bat I would run into would get good RNG rolls and hit me once for half of my HP. Now tell me, how does a normal dude with a bat hit a superhero, with super strength by the way, with a wooden baseball bat and take him down to 50 HP in one swing? Anyway, after I realized how RNG heavy the game was, I knocked the difficulty down to easy, which was doable for a majority of my time with the game. I still had to save scum my way through 30 or so missions due to me still getting my ass handed to me by common thugs, but it was doable. Anyway, I ended up maxing out most of my hero's abilities and getting to the last story arc of the game, but this is where the game got absurd. With only 3 missions away from the end of the game, I had to drop the difficulty down again to very easy. Yes, easy was too difficult for me. At very easy, the game becomes a joke. You basically one-shot everything, including bosses, and enemies get the bad RNG all the time. And here lies my main complaint and why I don't really recommend Freedom Force nowadays. With any difficulty above very easy, which is the bare minimum difficulty, the game becomes a constant struggle of essentially gambling RNG back and forth between the AI. Those who still love the game, I'm happy for you, because replaying Freedom Force for me was a chore. I could have easily dropped it and moved on to another game from my past, but I really wanted to love this game. And I do seem to be in the minority because as of editing this video, Freedom Force is sitting at an 88 user score and a 90 critic score on Metacritic. Now before I wrap up this video, I would like to mention that in 2005, Irrational Games released a sequel to Freedom Force called Freedom Force vs. the Third Reich. The sequel scored a bit lower than the first one, but from what I remember playing, I enjoyed it a lot more than the first. Side note, I did not play the sequel after I beat the first one for this video. I haven't played the sequel since it came out back in 2005. Now thinking about it, I think I enjoyed the sequel more than the original, more because it was set in World War II, and I'm a huge history buff, so I think it just naturally grabbed me more. Either way, I wanted to mention it, so if anyone is watching this video and wants to hop into the Freedom Force franchise, you have 2 games to check out. For those watching who want to pick up Freedom Force for themselves, you have several options, but only one of them seems to be the ideal way of playing the game. These games are available on Steam, however, without a community patch, the game is unplayable due to a bug that removes all mouse support. With an RTS, you kinda need a mouse to play. Another option is to search out and find the box copies of the game on eBay or similar sites. I found several on eBay ranging from anywhere between $5 and $20 each. Now the way I purchased it is what I think is the best option, and that is buying it through GOG. Not only do the GOG versions of both games go on sale quite often for $2 or $3, but they also come pre-installed with the community patch that fixes the infamous mouse bug as well as several other community bug fixes. I will leave the GOG purchase link below in the description if you guys want to check that out. And with that, that's episode 2 of Looking Back. Thank you guys so much for watching, and in the next Looking Back, which will release sometime in July of 2023, I will be covering a platformer on the N64 that to this day is still one of the best platformers I've ever played. And to give you a hint, no, it is not Super Mario 64. If you liked this video, make sure to leave it a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.